latency?
Yeah.
That's a big word, latency. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sewing Badly with Brent, because we're going to do some sewing again today. We're actually going to make something today instead of just rambling on while we make... I mean, we make stuff all the time, but I don't know if this is actually useful. Check out the website. We didn't get any new fabric in this week, right?
I don't think so.
No, nothing new. Okay. Check the website. We do have paper piecing coming up this week, and Luminaires Owners Club is coming up next week, I believe. Also, Thursday night open sews are now on the calendar. There's been some interest expressed in that, so we decided that we're going to open that up and see if we can't catch some of you after work and come in, hang out, and sew. We're going to do that Thursday nights, starting around 5, run till about 8, 9 o'clock. Probably 8. I'll say 9 o'clock, maybe, but, you know, before it gets too dark. So that'll be, check that out. If you do sign up online so I know you're coming, because if I don't have anybody signed up, by about 5:15, if there's nobody here, nobody signed up, I'm calling it a day. Because if it's nice out, you know, things to do. Otherwise, I'll be here sewing, and it'll be fun. Fat bundles came in?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. We had, I don't know where we put them. Why would I know this? Yes, we did get some K-Facet fat quarter bundles. So those came in. Wow, I didn't realize how bad my hair is looking at it in there. I got a haircut today. So we did get some K-Facet bundles in. We do have some classes coming up. And Eddie has just abandoned me. Are you getting one? Okay. So they're not all the same. They're all a little. What Free Spirit did is they sent us. I signed up to get them to send me what they call mystery bundles, and so they're not all the same, but they're all going to have K-Facet fabric in them. That's the idea behind it. So they're fat quarters of just some different fabrics. Come on the shop to pick one out if you want one. They're $47.95, and it's all the good stuff. You know, K-Facet, the fun stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's all we got. Okay. So, that's all we got going on there. So, what we're going to make today, because there's a few projects I've been putting off, and I'm like, you know what, if we do it on the show, then I can get it done. Eddie laughs at me because he's a true musician. Me, I just play. So, one of the things in my life as I'm camping, I'm like, I wish I had music around the campfire sometimes in the middle of nowhere. And then I'm like, I'm going to learn to play the guitar. And that lasted about a day. The whole idea with the guitar, my fingers just don't, I don't know. How do you do it, Eddie? You play the guitar pretty proficiently. You don't know. I think it's like, because what I found on the guitar is the length here puts my knuckle too far out to properly press the fret in to get the tone that I want. And there's probably a way around that. Because you see right here on the fret, that's got to catch that string down there. If this is too long, you have to slide it back. It's very uncomfortable if you try. I don't know but it could just be that I'm awful at things like that. So I just it's not worth it to me. So I gave up on the guitar. And then I went on this long search of what musical instrument is easy to learn and portable, because I want to bring it to the campfire. And so for a while I was messing around with recorders, and Sarah laughs at me because she got me a kazoo and she said that should be good enough, but it's also the sound of it, and recorders are awful. And then I discovered alto and tenor recorders. Have you heard those, Eddie? So if you have the regular recorders, it's super irritating. They're they're in high C, and I don't know why that's the instrument of choice for elementary school kids. I mean, I think it's to fry the brains of their parents. But I discovered alto recorders, and well, these sound nice. So I decided I was going to learn the recorder, but I didn't like the recorder because one of the problems you have with the recorder is you use your pinky on your right hand, and on an alto, I should have brought the one I have. You have to get way down there. But then I discovered the tin whistle, the English flute, the Irish, whatever they call it. The flute. This has a million different names. It's really nice because it's only 6 holes, so you only need your 6 big fingers, and they're easy to play. So I picked one of these up.
Jim says you should try bagpipes.
I thought about bagpipes. but they're not portable. And that is, if I thought that the sound of a recorder was bad, of a high C recorder. So I discovered the tin whistle, or the penny flute, all sorts of names for it. This one's actually a low F whistle, I think is what it is. I don't know for sure. I'm not a pro at this. I just like playing with them. But one of the things that I found was you can find these fairly inexpensively online, but none of them come with cool. They just come like wrapped in plastic and like, here you go, have a whistle. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go camping, so I need to make a case for it. And this is the first case I made. The only requirements I had for my cases when I was going through the shop is it has to be something that glows in the dark. So this one glowed in the dark, but the problem is I did the math wrong. You see, it kind of fits if I really try, and then it doesn't go all the way. So I had to, yeah. So anyway, I was like, I got to make a new case. So today we're gonna make a new case for my whistle, my Fipple whistle. But then when I found this fabric, I was like, that glows in the dark. And you know what else this case will be good for? Is if you have a wand. If you're one of those crazy Harry Potter types that has like wands, it would work for that because you see it has like little witches and stuff on it. So I thought this would be a good. So we called it a wand case, but we're actually going to make a quick, just a quick case for a flute. This and the technique how we're doing it, I kind of made up. It works. It's gets the job done. It's very simple. You could use this for any long object, and so yeah. See, I'm awful. Should I play a song, Eddie?
I think that's what people want.
Yeah, I'm awful. I haven't practiced in a while. But now that summer's here, I'll be camping. We'll be by the campfire, irritating people, scaring away the moose. All right. So, what I did to figure out how big to make this the first time is I laid it on my rotary mat when it went overhead shot for me. And this is where I kind of screwed up. And you can see this is 1 inch wide. And so I'm like, oh, 1 inch wide. So 2 inch will be plenty wide if I go 2 inch. So I'm going to start at 2.5 inches. That's what I first did. And that wasn't because I wasn't thinking in 3 dimensions. That's why it's such a tight fit. So instead of that, I have gone up to 3.5 inch strips to make this. So I have two 3.5 inch strips of my outside fabric. So we're just going to go over the requirements here real quick. And I have two 3.5 inch strips of what I'm going to line it with, my lining fabric. Now, one of the things I've done ahead of time, because I was like, we're going to do this like the cooking shows, you know how they like throw it in the oven and magically it's done. I did already prep this strip here. I also put on the back of these put some Decor Bond. It's probably not necessary if you're going to do this at home for other things, like you're making something for your kids' kazoos or whatever. You don't necessarily need the Decor Bond. I like Decor Bond anytime that I'm making Still talking. Okay. I like Decor Bond anytime I'm doing like a bag or something like this because it gives it a little bit of stiffness. It's not super heavy like the fusible fleece, but it gives it just a little bit of body, which is nice. You could use a lighter weight interfacing, but Decor Bond works really well for this sort of thing. So I already fused a piece of that to the back sides of my strip. So that's all you really need to make. Oh, I also have a little piece of elastic to close it. And then the other thing I was going to throw on this one, because I was really going to go all out, is we're going to add some attachment points so we can throw a sling on it. So you can like throw it over your back, like your Legolas with your flute running through the woods. We're going to throw that on there too, just because we can. We're having some fun here. So that's all you need. And the ribbon. I was going to actually, I was thinking of doing, have you ever seen Molly panels? Like there's a military standard for attachment points on like bags and stuff, where it's a 1 inch grid of webbing, and I was thinking about sewing that on here so that we could attach things like canteens to it. And then I'm like, that is just overkill, especially if we're going to put glow in the dark witch fabric on it. It's it loses all tactical advantages. These are my thought processes sometimes. So anyway, all we're going to do to start is sew our strips together. When I say sew our strips together, we're going to take this strip and sew 3 sides of it. I guess I should have cut my salvages off. Should I cut my salvages off? Yeah, let me cut my salvages off one side here. So I'm just going to cut. Do I have all the other two? I'm thinking I was all prepared today, then I realized I'm not quite as prepared as I thought I was. All I'm going to do is cut salvages off of this guy because when we do our strips, we're just going to sew 3 sides of the strip. We're going to leave the salvage edge unsewn, and I got to cut the salvage off of this. And like I said, this is a pretty basic idea what we're doing here. It's not, like I said, nothing to I don't say nothing to write home about. It's pretty straightforward. When you see the process, you're like, oh, you could probably make like cell phone bags out of this. Just make them short and fat instead of long and skinny. So all I'm going to do is take this and sew them right sides together. And I am going to sew the end closed on this, and you'll see why in a minute. It actually makes it easier to do. So what is that? And then when the aliens come down to get you. Yes, the aliens are going to come down to get me. Oh, did I tell you? So, you know how sometimes I like do research because I'm going to tell you a story while I sew? I didn't do a lot today because I figured we could get into the, no, I was going to we get into the economics of the last, but I did a lot of research on the Betty and Barney Hill story. We haven't covered that here yet, have we, Eddie?
I don't think so.
And so when Danny's talking about the aliens getting us, so for any of you that don't know, one of the early recorded incidents of alien abduction, one of the most famous in the UFO world, is the abduction of Betty and Barney Hill. And do you know where this happened? Do you know where it happened, Eddie?
Isn't it somewhere in Vermont?
No. It happened in New Hampshire. So we're in New Hampshire, so we can actually go ride the stretch of road where it happened. We don't know exactly where it happened. We've got a pretty good idea if you listen to them. But somewhere between Lincoln, is it Lincoln? Oh, see, I should have wrote this down. But up near Lincoln is where they got abducted. Just outside of the Indian Head Resort. There's a little plaque actually on the side of the road now for it. And there used to be this really fun gas station that actually had like a shrine to Betty and Barney Hill. It was like this, like a shrine next to the beer cooler. It was a fantastic stop if you were ever up in Lincoln, New Hampshire. But I think the gas station has since closed. I could be wrong though. Well, last time we went up there, it was closed, so I don't know if they reopened it or not. But anyway, they were a couple coming home from a vacation in Canada, and they got abducted. Is the story. And when I first heard the story, I was very kind of like, oh, they weren't all about alien abductions. It's like these people seem like normal and all that. But I'm kind of a skeptic when it comes to aliens, so I'm not sure. They were like did the whole hypnosis thing to recover lost time. It's a very well documented case, and it's still one that a lot of people point to today as proof of aliens.
Jan says she thought it was Exeter.
No, they are from the Exeter area. The abduction actually happened up north. That is, because I believe she was worked at the post office. Like I said, at the time it was like a huge thing. So I've just sewn 3 sides of this, and I'm going to use this turning tool. I hope it works like it's supposed to, because the worst part of this is turning these right side out. So I'm going to drop the turning tool in there. But yes, they were from Exeter, and then they didn't talk about their experience for quite a long time, till like a church group, somebody mentioned it, and it kind of blew up. So a lot of people point to this as like they didn't want to get famous off it. So it's always been one of those, it's proof of aliens because the people involved seemed trustworthy. And I'm not saying they weren't, I'm not saying something didn't happen, but it's just one of those, it's very interesting. I don't think this is going to work. I might have to do this old-fashioned way. The way these turners are supposed to work, but what happens is when you throw the Decker bond in there, it makes them a little bit stiffer than you want them to be. Why are you laughing, Eddie? Were you going to give me a "that's what she said" joke?
I'll leave that to Danny.
Oh, okay. So, back to Betty and Barney Hill while we fight with this. I totally forgot, but... And this is why I would recommend the 3.5 over the 2.5, because when I did this the first time, turning these was a pain. Yeah, I'll just do it the old-fashioned way. Just poke it and... So what happened is on their trip home from a trip up to Canada, they lost time. There's all sorts of and if you read the accounts, it's really kind of funny because it sounds like Betty Hill. She like wasn't having any of it. Like the aliens would like ask her things, and she like told the leader that she wanted something to prove that, like she had like a book according to her story that because she told the leader she wanted proof of what happened. But then when she went to leave, they took it from her because it wasn't approved. And very interesting story. Like I said, I found it very very interesting, very fun. What I find interesting about it is there's another little known fact about the area where they were abducted. It's called the East Haven Radar Base. If you look at a map, you know, this is a theory that little context. There's an old army base up in the woods anyway, we're visiting one day. I'll get into the details on that. But where I heard this theory, so we're up there doing some off-roading, and there is this old dude. Now think of like John Rambo, but like the Vermont version. That's this dude. We see him hanging out in the woods, and I'll talk to anybody. I'm like talking to him, and and he's outside his car, and I just peek on the front seat of his Jeep, and he's got like 6 rifles. I'm like, is he fighting a war up here? Very very interesting character. But he was like a local to the area, old timer, and I get him talking. So where we were at is the East Haven Radar Base in northern Vermont. Now, for many of you that don't know, up on East Mountain in Vermont is a radar base that was built in the 60s. And the reason that happened is another interesting fact is, do you know the shortest path for nuclear missiles to hit us, Eddie? Like if Russia was going to nuke us.
It would be it coming from the east side?
It come from the east. Is it east or west? What's the shortest path?
Wait, Russia wouldn't it be like
What's the shortest distance for a nuke?
like over California?
Over California, you think?
Because it depends on like Russia's really big.
Yeah, so yeah, Russia's huge. So if they were going to lob a nuke at us, what's the shortest path? The shortest would also be the quickest path.
It'd be from like the east side of Russia, right? Because
maybe, I don't know.
but nobody lives on the east side of Russia.
Well, that's probably where they put all their nukes then, because they don't want to put their nukes where people live, right?
That's fair.
Okay. We actually know the quickest path? It's not
It's
east.
above.
It's above, exactly. It's over the North Pole. That's why if you do your research and you want to find weird things, there is a huge number, because believe it or not, Maine is one of the northernmost states when you look at a map. And the quickest, the shortest distance from Russia to the United States is over the North Pole. So what you've got in a lot of northern Maine, and then that's the reason for this radar base up in northern Vermont, is in the days of the Cold War, in the mid-'60s, when this place was built, their whole thing was, well, we got to have a radar base there so we can detect anything coming over the North Pole through Canada. So there's this old radar base. It was operational up there for a few years in northern Vermont. Guess the time frame that it was operational. About the same time that Betty and Barney Hill were abducted by aliens. Do you think there's a relationship between the radar base?
Maybe the aliens wanted information on the radar base.
It gets even better. Again, like I said, I got all this from like some local guy that had 3 rifles on his front seat, and so take it with a grain of salt. But having been there, his story is interesting to say the least. The other thing about this radar base, if you want to go there today, go to look at a Google map. Radar Road in Victory, Vermont. And all you do is just drive up to Radar Road and take that road, just keep driving on it, turns into a logging trail. And when the logging trail turns into broken up, busted up pavement, you've arrived at the base. So that's where the barracks and stuff. The actual radar base, you have to hike up a mountain. But, so we're talking to this dude, and we're talking, and if you go up there, it's really interesting. All the infrastructure's still there. If you want a nice hike up a Vermont mountain, it's an actual paved Jeep trail. It's like you don't have to and it's still in pretty good condition. You could probably drive up there, but if you do drive up there, the last person I talked to, I think it's a $300 or $400 fine if the forest ranger catches you. So that's the first one. We're going to repeat this process one more time. So, where was I? Okay, so you got this base up in northern Vermont, and I'm talking to this crazy guy in the woods, and he's telling me that his buddy, been up there all his life, and at one point they were gonna build a wind farm up there. Makes sense, windmills on the side of a mountain in Vermont. If you go check this base out, all the infrastructure is still there. You've got roads that go up to it, very easy to get at. You've got a lot of concrete, a lot of the electrical infrastructure is there because of the base and stuff. And they were going to build a wind farm up there, but apparently the guy that bought it got a knock on the door from some unidentified people that were probably fed. They said, feds, not men in black, just feds. And they said, you can't build a wind farm up there. And he's like, why? He says, because we don't want you digging around up there. Because the rumor is that on the back side of that mountain is a nuke. Like, it wasn't a radar base. It was actually a nuclear missile silo. Like, it was a first strike nuke because of how close it is to Russia. Right? Is that not a crazy story? Now, having been up to the base, I was talking to the guy, and he told me exactly where it would be. And there may be some validity to that story. I don't know. All I'm saying that if you want a good story, it's definitely a good story. And having been there, like all good urban legends, it seems like it could be true. But then tie this back to the UFO phenomenon of Betty and Barney Hill, because we all know that UFOs show up around nuclear installations, right? Isn't that one of the things, if you're a UFO person, like, it's one of those weird mysteries, like, why did the UFO always seem to show up whenever there's a new, back in the day when there was a new nuclear reactor or whatever's going online, UFOs show up. And so, that makes you wonder, because this base was active at the same time that Betty and Barney Hill had their UFO experience. So was it aliens, or was it the Air Force doing some sort of security thing with the base? Because if you look at a map, it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to think that, that they could be related, especially if you're flying around in the air, because, it's the air. What's a couple mountains and a road going to do for you? So what do you think of that story, Eddie? So yes, East Haven Radar Base. You should check it out. It's a very interesting place to visit. It's one of my favorite places to go. I try to get up there at least. Once a year, just because like I said, I really enjoy. It's kind of a fun place to go. Very pretty in the fall. It's a very pretty place in the fall. What's that?
Have you ever looked for the nuke?
I have not. I should go back up there because I've only been to the top twice. Once I hiked up. It's a longer hike than you realize. It's one of those. Okay, so it's a Jeep trail going straight up it's a paved road that goes up, but the road is so steep at some points. It's paved, so it's easy walking. But you can actually sit on the road and sit comfortably with your legs out, like you're sitting on a stool, because it's that steep. One time I went up there, I don't know. Well, I guess I don't know what the statute of limitations is, but anyway, we drove around the roadblock and took a truck up. That was way easier. But I haven't been up for a while. But next time I go up, I want to go check the place out where I think the nuke is at. Apparently, it's on the backside with some rubble. Like I said, very interesting place. I would recommend anybody that wants to go for a hike to go check it out. The base at the bottom, the barracks, is really interesting because at the top is where the radar array is at. So that's where they did all the work. So you've got the old radar towers. It's not really a tower. It's just like a giant structure where you can see where they have the radar and a few other things. And at the bottom of the hill is your barracks, your motor pool, the mess hall. It's all still there. It's all very post-apocalyptic and very interesting. Just rotting away in the middle of the woods. But anyway, so the idea is that the nuclear installation in Vermont is related to the UFO phenomena that happened with Betty and Barney Hill. So, that's That's the story I'm going with. I like that story. I don't know how true it is, but it makes a great story, and it's right in our own backyard. It's a lot of fun. It's one, like I said, and it's also just, and if you really want to find some interesting stuff, try and find those old radar sites. They're all over in northern New England, northern Maine. One of the tricks is if you can get old maps, you'll find like old maps will have like blacked out areas, and then you'll get like new maps, and it won't be as blacked out, and you're like, oh, there was probably some sort of installation there at some point. There's a really cool website where you can go on to look at old geo maps and stuff. But that's so. What do you think, Eddie? Do you believe in UFOs? Are you a believer?
Maybe.
Oh, I
feel
messed this
there
up.
could be-
What's that?
There could be aliens.
You think there could be aliens?
Yeah.
What? Okay. But why would, if there were aliens, why would they come visit us?
I don't know.
Are we like a zoo? I mean, I would think that, you know, if I'm an advanced species just kind of tooling around the universe, I don't know that humans would be that interesting.
Maybe.
And if we were that interesting, I would think it'd be like at the zoo. We like, you know, the tiger in the cage knows you're there, and like the monkeys know you're there, and they'll kind of mess with you when they see you watching them. So I would think that if we were a zoo, you know, an intergalactic zoo, that they would at least show themselves now and again, and we just know it. We would know about it. We would know that we're on the inside of the zoo, that we were in the ant farm, right?
Maybe.
I mean, I'm just saying, I don't. And then the other thing is like, so you have intergalactic travel, and I have to imagine that we're probably like the trailer park of the galaxy. You know, like the place nobody goes to, and so why would they waste their fuel to come visit us? I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe. You know, Roswell's explained, right? Roswell, the big New Mexico one where the flying saucer. You've been, yeah, I've been there too. You know the theory on that one? Since we're going to just talk UFOs today. You know the theory on that one, right?
No.
That it was actually aliens is what most people want to believe. Have you heard the plausible theory?
No.
I heard this theory and it makes sense, and I've been trying to track down the source on it ever since I had heard it. The theory on that one is that it's not a UFO, that it was actually a Russian. I love how the Russians are like. It's like the Russians fall for everything. But I mean, back in the day, the theory on that one is that it was actually a Russian psyop. What they did is they flew a drone, like an old school drone, like it wasn't like an unmanned drone, and they purposely crashed it in New Mexico. And what they had done is they had used some bodies from one of their, you know, they had some weird medical experiments they were doing. So they had actually the bodies there was actually bodies in the wreckage that they had taken from their from one of their labs that they're doing medical experiments on, and that's the little aliens that people saw and that were there, but it was actually a psyop, and the reason that the Air Force covered it up is they didn't want to admit that Stalin was able to get an aircraft that deep into our airspace. So that's the explanation for Roswell. Okay. What's the next one you want me to debunk?
No, I don't know. Because that's when the aliens looked like the green ones.
Yeah, the green. Yeah, the grays.
The grays.
Yeah.
They're gray. I think
See,
but like, how accurate is that depiction?
of the grays?
Yeah.
Well, it's really interesting if you actually follow that out, because if you study UFOlogy and all that, is where does that start? Like, why do we all assume that the little men with giant heads and giant eyes are what aliens look like? What's the origins of that?
I don't know. Like,
Because is that like they say that there's UFOs in the Bible, you know, some flaming chariot or some flaming, there's like some weird one that they cite, but nobody ever talks about aliens. That's like a very recent phenomenon.
yeah.
So what's the history of it? Because what's the
You're saying there's bodies there, right, at the Roswell?
yeah. The bodies in Roswell.
Do they look like little gray guys?
Yeah, okay. This is the sick part. When I heard this, I'm like, that's kind of messed up. according to what I was listening to, the actual file says they used kids that had Down syndrome. Those were the bodies that they had found there, like with Down syndrome and encephalitis. But anyway, they were actually bodies that of physically disabled kids that were being used in one of their labs, and so they just repurposed the bodies to give like these weird alien effects. So that's why they looked kind of weird and alien, is because they were deformed, whether from the experiments that were being performed or whether from birth defects. But that's the theory. So do you see how that kind of that kind of goes? Because if you look at like Martians, because Martians were like the original aliens, in War of the Worlds, do you know how he portrayed his Martians?
Aren't they like little tall, like things?
Like what?
Aren't they like tall things with legs?
No, that's what they drove.
That's what they drove.
Yeah, they were basically like, oh gosh, apparently they're like giant heads. Cephalopods. They were giant cephalopods. So why is it that our idea of what an alien is? Okay, so I've got this. We spend more time turning. So if you're all watching this, we're making our wand bag. Remember, we're not just talking about aliens. We're doing something constructive. So why is it that our version of aliens now is different variations of the little gray man, the grays versus the green? You know, they're all. If you fall down the rabbit hole, there's different like races of them, but they're all giant eyes and giant heads, right?
Yeah.
None of them are cephalopods like War of the Worlds. Why is that?
I guess if you're seeing them, they're more humanoid, right? So.
Yeah, but I mean, is that us projecting?
Yeah, I'd say, what if aliens were
because
people
now that
this entire time?
What's that?
What if aliens were people this entire time?
Yeah. Well, that brings us to the other thing. When you start looking at like MK Ultra experiments and a lot of the DMT type stuff and the hallucinogenic type, it's interesting that the interdimensional elves, I think is the best description, that a lot of people experience, well, in some of these altered states of mind, tend to be very similar in description to what people say they experience when being abducted. The beings tend to be very similar. So what does that tell us?
So alien abductions were just the government giving people drugs?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know the answers. These are questions I don't have answers to, Eddie. All right. So far, so good?
Do you know what Soylent Green is?
Soylent Green, all I know about Soylent Green is that Soylent Green is people. That's all I know about Soylent Green.
Okay.
Did you know that about Soylent Green?
I don't know I've never heard of it.
It's a movie back in the day. Who is it? It's the guy that played Moses, right? Charlton Heston? Right? He was Moses. Was that Moses? Not Moses. Wasn't he Moses?
And what?
The Ten Commandments?
I didn't watch the Ten Commandments.
Oh. I mean, I just love the fact that, you know, our idea of Moses back in the day in Hollywood blockbuster is Charlton Heston, you know. I think it was Charlton Heston, right? Heston, yes. So that's one of the things that where did my flute go? Oh, it's over there. We're just on a roll today, Eddie. All right, so now that I've done this, what I've done is I've left one end open so we could turn it. But now what I'm going to do is just top stitch around the edge, but I want to figure out how much I have to cut off. So what I want to do is, all I'm going to do is lay my flute on here to figure out how big the front is going to be. And I'm going to give it a little bit of extra. So the front wants to be, I'm going to go probably about an inch past. So all I'm going to do is I'm just like, okay, so we're going to take a 1/4 inch off the top. We're going to we're going to do an overhead shot? Let's do an overhead shot. That would work. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to lay this bad boy on here. And like, oh, look how long that is. That's about right. Give myself a little bit extra off the bottom so I can close that up. And I am just going to do this. I'm just going to close that just like that. Do I want to be a little bit? I'm going to give myself a little bit more just so we can stick it down there really good. And I'm just going to cut that off right there. Because, you know, we're very precise here. And that is going to be about right. So then all I'm going to do is after I do that is I'm just going to turn this end in ever so carefully. And I could iron it, I suppose, but you know how I feel about ironing and stuff. Turn it in, turn it in. So Soylent Green, yeah, that was Charlton Heston. Wasn't he like an NRA guy or something? Isn't that why, like, what did he do that made him like so? All right, and then I'm just going to close that off. So that is now the front of our super splendiferous wand bag, or whatever we're calling this. What are we calling this? Flute bag. Now, the other thing I'm going to do next, I probably should have got pins. Do I have pins? Can you go grab me some pins, Eddie? So all I'm going to do next is I'm going to top stitch that to here, and we're going to have like this giant sleeve. But there's a few things that I want to attach to this. One being our, we want to attach our, we're going to attach a little piece of elastic so that we can flop the end over. Is it just like a pin cushion out there, Eddie? Oh, there we go, yep. So, what we're going to do next, like I said, is we want to attach first our bit of elastic. And all I'm going to do on that is I'm just going to put that probably about there, I guess. And if I had been thinking, I would have actually sewn this into here first so that it wouldn't be on the inside of my flute bag, but whatever. Not the end of the world. We're just going to go like that. And we're going to pin that. So when we go around the edges, it will catch it. You'll see here in just a second what we're doing. So I'm just going to put that there, put a pin in it, put a bird on it. Do you ever watch Portlandia, Eddie?
Yeah.
Have you seen the one about put a bird on it? So we're just going to put that there, and that's going to fold under. So when we go around the edges, we're going to catch that. Then the other thing I wanted to do was add a couple straps so that, like I said, we can. Where did I put my? Where did I put my ribbon? Oh, it's right there. We're going to put a couple. I'm going to put a couple ribbon pieces of ribbon on it, so we have a place to, if we wanted to add a strap, you know, like a hook of some sort, and got like all fancy and sling it over. Like I said, if we're going to be like Legolas from Lord of the Rings. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut that, and on the back here, I'm just going to put it near the top, like so. I like that. I guess I could just, we could pin it, or we could just let it set. I should probably pin it, you know. You know how you guys know how I feel about pins. I guess we're just going to go through everything at this point.
Gene said the movie also has Meg Robinson and Chuck Connors.
Chuck Connors? I don't know any of these people.
Me neither.
Does that make us like, does that mean we have to now watch this so we can learn about these individuals? All right, and I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. Now, the only reason I'm doing this, like I said, this is for if I want to, I'm going to, like, if I want to make a strap that I can hook onto this, I can, this is just going to give me a loop to work with. And I could have cut that smaller, but I just don't really care. I'm just going to put that right there. I want to make sure I'm high enough off the bottom. I don't want to put it right down on the bottom because that means I'm going to catch it on my way through and I'm top stitching this. So I'm going to bring it up a little bit. And right about there looks good. What?
John says the show is turning into a podcast.
It's turning into a podcast about what?
I guess it's about everything at this point.
Okay.
We've talked about quite a bit of stuff.
So we should like
Chuck
put it on.
Connors was a rifleman.
Oh, the rifleman. Yeah. See, okay. Because that's Soylent Green we're talking about. I was thinking, are we talking about the Ten Commandments? Because if it had Charlton Heston and the rifleman in it, that would have been a really interesting telling of the Ten Commandments. I think that movie needs to be made. All right, so all I've done now is I'm not going to worry about this top half right now. I'm just going to sew my bottom portion of the pouch on. So I've got this kind of...
It's not Egg Robinson, it's E.G. Robinson. Or
I-
Eddie Robinson.
I would rather, if my name was E.G. and everybody called me Egg, I'd be like, that's cool. I can be Egg.
Would you go bald?
Just because to make the egg work? I don't know. What does being bald have to do with eggs, Eddie?
You look like an egg if you're bald.
And I'm just going to lock stitch that in. And, of course, I'm doing this on a featherweight. And okay, there we go. And then my 1/4 inch guide is getting caught there on those two pieces that I pinned in. And now all I'm doing is just top stitching around the edge, hopefully. Why does that want to not lay flat for me? Why, Eddie? Why does it hate me so? All right, we're almost there. Okay. Now, if I was really like spiffy, I would have actually turned that corner, but I actually would rather do my sides and then we'll seal the bottom up after. What's that?
Chuck Connors also played in the Celtics.
He played for the Celtics?
Yeah.
And he was the rifleman?
Yeah. What is the rifleman?
You've never seen the rifleman? You and I are like, oh, I'm going to be a cowboy.
Yeah.
The rifleman is like the original cowboy.
Whoa.
He was, he had a rifle and he like saved the day. That's why he was called the rifleman. He like, you know, had adventures in the Wild West with his rifle.
Was it like a show or was it?
Yeah, it was like a weekly show. It was like Walker, Texas Ranger before Walker. All right, now we're gonna do that. Okay. This is pretty exciting. You all excited about this awesome whatever I've just made? It's high quality. You keep in mind, you cannot buy something this awesome at the store. This is only, you can only get this if you're crafty. All right, there we go. Now let's see if it's gonna fit. Do you think it's gonna fit the whistle?
I'd say so.
Okay, let's do a whole shot here, Eddie. Let's see. Oh, it fits much nicer.
I missed the.
You missed the big reveal.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do it again so people can see it. See how this fits so much better? So you see it just. Now I have one last thing I've got to do is I've got to finish my flap up, but all I got to do now is figure out how far down we want it to go. I'm going to say to about there. That looks good. And I'm just going to zip it across, fold it under. I'm going to fold it at a little bit of an angle so it's easier to get through the elastic. You know, because didn't we try that once when we were making scarves, like trying to fold it at an angle, and we ended up just like not worth the hassle?
Yeah.
You think I learned from that, Eddie?
Oh.
No, I didn't. I'm going to try and fold this at an angle. Oh, look at that. That looks good. And we have our straps on the back, so we can. I can make like a paracord like carrying strap. Oh, I'm gonna have to redo that line because I didn't lock in the other side. Because I'm so used to quilting, a lot of times I forget that I've got to lock my stitches in. All right. Are we all ready for that? See how easy that was to make? And like if you wanted to make like a fancy little cell phone pouch, you could do a very similar idea, just make it shorter and wider. And then this,
What's the
what's the what? Oh, I should have probably went up a little higher. Oh, that'll work.
when would you use a cell phone case?
I don't know. I'm just saying. If you wanted to make like a cute little pouch, this is. I mean, the construction technique we just used for that, you could use for any sort of kind of bag. And the best part is it glows in the dark. We've got two little loops here if we wanted to put some sort of strap on it.
You gotta cut those strings off.
You want me to cut those strings off? Would it make you feel better?
We gotta make it look professional. We want to.
They just saw me put it together. They know this is not professional. There's more to the story. Yeah. Okay, so the rifleman was a single dad. I didn't know that.
Whoa.
Imagine that message. A single dad with a rifle. Anyway.
Did you have a rifle when you were a single dad?
Yeah, I had a rifle. I got a rifle when I was like 12 for my birthday. I don't know if that's good or bad parenting, but I had a nice little 22 that day. And I had that for a while, and then I became a man and got into guns and trucks, and now I have more than one rifle. Wait, am I supposed to make the joke where I lost them all in a boating accident? Isn't that what they say now?
I don't know what that means.
That's what they say because if the government gonna come take your guns, gonna come knock on my door, I'm gonna be like, I lost it in a boating accident. I don't know why you think I got a rifle. I was out boating the other day and lost all my rifles in a boating accident. That's what that joke comes from. Anyway, was that was I don't know if I just offended half the people that watch us or.
No, I'm sure they all appreciate it.
All right, so there you go. So that's your So now when I'm out, when I'm gonna go camping and I wanna have use my magical flute because it's a magical flute because we have like magical things on our case.
Are you gonna get some glitter?
We could glitter it up. We could put like rhinestones on it. But yeah, but like I said, you also saw how easy that was to make. You could do it without the decor bond because the decor bond gives it a little bit more body, so it makes it a little bit stiffer. You could also, if you did make it fatter and wider, you could box your corners. I like the idea of the two strips together and just top stitching because it gives you a nice finished edge without a whole lot of effort. You could do like a French seam and do it a little bit different. I just found this technique to be pretty quick and easy. And then I also didn't have to measure anything. I just had to make sure it was wide enough because we saw how the first attempt turned out. It wasn't wide enough. But this one is, and like I said, you could use it for any number of things. I don't know what else, like long things that you could do. But like if you actually have like a flute or you have somebody that plays an instrument, it's like you could put flannel on the inside if you wanted to do that, depending on what you're putting in it. So there's lots of options. It's just a quick little bag, real simple to do. If you wanted to, you could put more of these pieces of ribbon across the back if you wanted more anchor points to strap something to. Like I said, if you were going to go really gung ho and make it like to military spec, you would put these every inch. Every other inch, and then put a seam every other inch this way. Then you could actually attach molly gear to it, and it would be really cool.
You can make a sleeping bag.
You could make this into a sleeping bag?
If you made it big enough.
Yeah, but that would get kind of weird.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just make a quilt at that point?
Well, you could get two quilts and
sandwich them together. So why? And put a zipper and have like a sleeping bag, just sew zippers to quilts and zipper them together.
That's probably a good idea.
All right. I don't know if this was exciting at all today. I feel like I was very unprepared, but I wasn't. I like planned it out and everything. I had like the decor bomb put on. I didn't have a lot of content. I do apologize that the UFO content wasn't as good as I thought it would be. But like I said, when I started to research the whole Betty and Barney Hill thing, it just was not as interesting as I thought it would be. It was a very yes, they thought they were abducted by aliens, and then Barney was just kind of like, yeah, I might have been, but I don't want to talk about it. And Betty was just like, I was abducted by aliens. She kind of really embraced that near the end of her life. At first, she didn't really like the idea, didn't really want to embrace it. It was very interesting. interesting story. I'd say look into it. Even more interesting, like I said, if you are into finding weird stuff in the woods, do a little bit of research on the Nike sites. I can't remember what Nike stands for, but that's what they call them, the Nike missile sites. Those were all the first deterrent and stuff, northern Maine, northern New Hampshire, northern Vermont, for stuff coming over the North Pole. And yeah, rumor is there is a nuclear missile buried on the back of a mountain in Vermont, which is kind of funny when you think of all the crunchy granola people that moved to Vermont to be hippies. And it's like, yeah, you guys have a nuke buried in your state, right? Anyway, that's all I really got. Any thoughts? Anything you want to add, Eddie?
I don't think there's much.
Not much going on.
I think we had a good.
We had a good run. I mean, and it's nice out too, so probably everybody's outside, enjoying the weather. But anyway, I do thank you all for watching. Like I said, I hope this pretty, like I said, not quite professional, but it's going to get the job done for what I want it for. And like I said, lots of applications. You could do something very similar to different sizes and whatnot, easy enough to do. And wow, I looked at myself on my screen. I'm like, oh my gosh. But anyway, thanks for watching. So on.